I want to talk about the lies and what I'm hoping will be this new war for truth and where we begin and what we're lying about. I gave you tomorrow's news today. I told you that after the conservatives hammered California for the official malfeasance that caused the city of LA to burn down or assisted the fire and letting it burn down, I told you that we were going to get comments exactly like this one from Governor Newsom, that we can't criticize this because people are suffering. This is cut 3.
I'm not interested in politicizing an event like this. I don't like the banality of it. I don't like the inhumanity of that. I would like people to focus on a collaboration between the executive in Washington, D.C. and in the state of California to help rebuild a community that's been completely ravaged.
So this is hilarious coming from the clowns who basically blamed George W. Bush for Hurricane Katrina as if Bush had sat in the Oval Office going until the winds, like the chaos theory, the winds finally got so strong they blew away all the black people. Remember, there's Kanye West. George W. Bush doesn't like black people. And every time there's a shooting, they stand on the bodies to make speeches about how conservatives are to blame or guns are to blame, and they want to seize all our guns. But now they want to pretend that this is just unavoidable. One article I saw was called LA was built to burn. It's the mountains and the winds and the this, and that's who climate change has moved all this. But let me put this to you from another perspective, because I want to talk about something else. What if before the fires, or let's say Donald Trump had come over and said, hey, wait a minute, 4 years ago, the voters approved $7.5 billion in water money. It was a vote. It was a huge vote. It was like 67% in favor of it. $2.7 billion was set aside for additional water storage, more reservoirs. And most voters thought that there would be new dams and projects to replenish the groundwater basins, and all this. $4.8 billion was earmarked for regional projects, recycling, and all this stuff. 86% of that money has been appropriated, so the government has it, but only 14% has been spent. And none of these things has happened. No new water storage. So what if I told you that before the fires? And what if I said, but don't worry, the fire chief is making sure there are more women firefighters. What would you have said? You would have said, taxi, take me out of California because this city is going to burn to the ground. You would have known it was going to happen. Well, that is exactly what I felt like watching Pete Hegseth and Kirsten Gillibrand. Maybe we should just ban women named Kristen and Kirsten. Maybe that's the problem. But this is the questioning this guy gets when he wants to be the head of the State Department. By the way, made a great showing of himself, really was articulate, knowledgeable, understanding, knew where the issues were. And this is what Kirsten Gillibrand said to him.
Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? Once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal. I mean, you're basically saying women after they have children can't ever serve in the military in a combat role. It's a silly thing to say. It's a silly thing to say beneath the position that you are aspiring to. To denigrate LGBTQ service members is a mistake. If you are a sharpshooter, you're as lethal regardless of what your gender identity is, regardless of who you love. So please know this to be a true statement. So you say it was a political thing. You say it undermined us, social engineering. I don't know why someone having to publicly say or not publicly say who they love is social engineering.
So you can see that Hegseth is just stoicizing his way through this. He's absolutely silent. So what we did is we had the DailyWire send a film crew into his brain, and these were the thoughts we recorded. This is cut 5.
Observe my hands, my dear. I could tear you to pieces with them.
I couldn't help myself. Now, no mother should be in a combat zone. That's a violation of everything we know to be sacred and important. I mean, what are we fighting for if not to keep mothers safe so they can do the one job that actually matters, making life, fashioning souls and all that stuff. But more urgently than that, what if I told you this? What if I told you the Secretary General of NATO says that war is coming and we're not prepared, and the RAND Corporation says the U.S. defense strategy and posture have become insolvent. The tasks that the nation expects its military forces and other elements of national power to do internationally exceed the means that are available to accomplish those tasks. Our defense strategy is based on the assumption we'll only have to fight one war at a time, when it's more likely that China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea could team up on us and become the new evil axis? What if I told you that China's shipbuilding industry, this is an amazing stat, has a capacity more than 230 times greater than that of the U.S.? They are building a massive navy. They're moving in on our ports. They're moving in on our borders. They're building gigantic amphibious landing craft so they can invade Taiwan. They have a powerful new microwave weapon that has the intensity of a nuclear explosion and can destroy electronic components on our weapon systems. And of course, they have TikTok to destroy our society. And I told you that that's what Kirsten Gillibrand is saying. Why can't mommies and gay people be in the combat troops? That's what she's worried about. So that list that I gave you, most of that comes from, guess where? The New York Times, a former newspaper, on Knucklehead Row, where David Brooks puts forward that list and then attacks Hegseth for his obsession with wokeness in the military. Well, that's just a lie. It is just a lie. Hegseth is obsessed with lethality and making sure the men who have to go in and kill the people who are trying to kill us are well supported by the brass, which is now overblown and completely full of fat and full of people who haven't won a war since I think it was 1812. So we've lied about who men and women are and what they can do and what they should do. And we've lied about what government is and what it can do. And at the heart of this fantasy world we've been in is a lack of understanding of what evil is, of what the threats are, and how prevalent those threats are, and why it doesn't matter if there are enough women in the military. It only matters if there are enough men who can kill people while carrying the kind of like 125-pound packs they have to carry when they're in full battle rattle. The biggest thing that the left leaves out is genuine evil. It's universality, right? And it's nature, the way it permeates everything. It's not just, Donald Trump is Hitler. It's not Hitler at all. It is a force that all of us are susceptible to. So let's talk about evil and men and women, okay? You remember about, I don't know how many years ago, it was quite a long time ago, Ben Shapiro, I think it was one of the Marches for Life. And Ben Shapiro was on the rise, and whatever he said, of course, the media would make a fuss about. It was bad, it was evil. And he was asked if you could go back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you kill baby Hitler? And Ben said, no, you don't kill an innocent baby. What I would do is I would take Hitler out of his family where he was an abused child and hopefully put him in a situation where he could be raised and not become evil Hitler, right? And they just were screaming, he wouldn't, he wants there to be a Hitler, he supports Hitler and all this. Absolutely unfair. He was 100% right. Because people become evil by choosing evil, right? Evil is a force. It is a force like the air. It's around us. It's in us. Solzhenitsyn said the line between good and evil runs right through every human heart, which means that people can go in one direction or another. And yes, the devil gets into us through our broken places. When you're abused, when you're desperate, when you are sick or mentally ill, it's much, much easier for that little voice in your head that says, oh, if you go this way, it's going to comfort you or make you stronger. If you hate Jews, that's going to make you a strong guy. You get to go on X and say, oh, I don't like Jews. And that makes you a really tough, cool guy. And that's going to make you, and of course, even as you're doing that, you become this kind of twisted, guy like the Gollum in Lord of the Rings. You get shrunken down to nothing, even as you're saying, oh, I'm so tough because I hate people, If you own a smartphone, a computer, or any internet-connected device, there are thousands of companies out there who know you better than you do. They're called data brokers, and they make billions of dollars a year tracking your activity across the internet. They know what you've bought, everywhere you've been, who you talk to, your private and personal beliefs, and they package all that up into a profile that they sell to people who want to control you, marketers, activists, and yes, politicians too. So what you can do about it is get off the internet entirely or start protecting yourself with ExpressVPN. Here's something most people don't realize. Your internet provider can see everything you do online, even in incognito mode. That's why I use ExpressVPN. These companies track you through your IP address, but ExpressVPN masks your IP address completely, giving you a new IP address that can't be traced back to you. With the new year and new opportunities coming up, I'm especially grateful for ExpressVPN. Whether I'm checking my bank account from the airport or working from my laptop on the go, I know my data is secure. It's incredibly simple. Just one click and you're protected across all your devices. You can start your 2025 with the peace of mind ExpressVPN gives. Find out how you can get 4 months free by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description box below, or by going to expressvpn.com/Andrew Klavan Show. A healthy society has strong social structures against doing evil. You know what evil looks like. And a lot of those have to do with the relationships between men and women. So when a woman is a slut, she cheapens all the other women. It's not just herself she cheapens because she makes it difficult for them to live with self-respect unless they have the character to do it. Obviously, you can do it. You can choose to do it. But if you're in a slut culture, it becomes much harder to do that because a lot of the available men are going off where things are easy and when they have no responsibilities. That's why if you read, old novels like Tom Jones, for instance, when a woman in the novel Tom Jones gets pregnant out of wedlock, the other women beat her up. It's not the men saying you're a slut, it's the other women because she cheapens them. She makes them more vulnerable. So in a healthy society, women who are sluts get shamed. They are made to feel ashamed by the society around them. People say, you are less than you should be because of the way you behave. They don't have shows like where you come on and talk about how many men, what your body count is, and they giggle at you and sort of make nasty remarks. But meanwhile, they got a camera focused on your cleavage. They don't do that. They actually make you feel ashamed. If you're a man, and I lived in this society, so I know, and you take a woman out and she gets drunk, you don't press your advantage on her. It's just not right. You just don't do it. You take her home because she's not ready to make any decisions about what she should do with you or your life. You don't use her for your pleasure just because you happen to get her drunk. Getting a woman drunk was shameful, and other men would shame you for it because it made them look bad. Those systems become a social network. That is the kind of social constraint that a healthy society has, and we haven't had really since the 1960s, increasingly less since the 1960s, although I sense it coming back a little bit. Those systems make us feel constrained because we feel society is holding us back. And so women feel like, I feel ashamed. So instead of stopping being a slut, which would be the smart thing to do, I'm gonna fight society, and that's gonna make me a rebel. We were talking about this before, that C.S. Lewis comment about when we were talking about Wicked, the C.S. Lewis comment that women are taught by the evil people, they're taught to rebel, that rebellion itself is a good thing. And we understand that nobody likes to be constrained by society or by anything else. And so we understand why women are taught to rebel and then they degrade themselves. And the same thing happens with men. And men always feel the constraints of society more because men have a lot of rebellion in them and a lot of energy, and they want to go and do something. They got to do it now. They want what they want now. That's the way men are. They're aggressive. They're very active, and they feel the constraints of society. And it's much easier to teach men to break those rules. And that's why we have the situation where women are supposed to do anything they want, but men are yelled at for taking advantage of that, which is absurd, right? So people get angry. They get angry, right? And when you have a screechy creature like Kirsten Gillibrand cawing like a crow in your ear about a mother's right to be killed in combat while you're trying to restore the military so that she's not carried off by the Chinese and, put in their bat dish, I don't blame you for having a fantasy of hurling her into a room with Andrew Tate and locking the door. We all have fantasies like that. When your boss makes you work late, you have a fantasy of strangling the guy. I understand why people look at Andrew Tate and he says, that's why they giggle when he says things like this. And play cut 8. This is Andrew Tate.
Perfected this in pimp school. When I got my PhD, we had to practice if a girl comes at you, you cheater, you're cheating. It's bang out the machete, boom in her face, and then grip her up by the neck. Her panties get wet. The machete's on the floor, her panties are all wet. You her. That's how it goes. Slap, slap, grab, choke, shut up, sex. These are the basic moves of pimping.
I'm sure they are. Obviously, That's evil. You know that. You are built to know it. You have the image of God inside you. You are built to know evil when you see it. You're built to know good when you see it. And you know that men and women are one flesh. One side of them can't get degraded without the other side being degraded. And there was a really bad moment on Benny Johnson's show. Johnson had Tate on and compared the legal cases against Tate, which were dropped because the police apparently had done some systematic things, illegal technicalities. It was dropped, but he had been bragging about pimping women and using them to make money through and all this stuff. And Benny Johnson brings him on and introduces him like he's a victim in the same way Trump is, because Trump really was a victim of lawfare. This is what he said, cut 6.
You know so very much about this, but whether it be you or Marie Le Pen in France or Bolsonaro in Brazil or President Trump here in America, there seems to be a global fight against the freedom movement, against populism and against free speech and free thinkers. You yourself have been a victim of this. And so I want to just set the table for you to sound off on your take, President Trump being sentenced today.
Yeah, that was a foregone conclusion. Anyone who believed that jury selection had anything to do with the decision that they were going to come up with for President Trump is extremely childish.
Now, anybody who brings this guy who's on video beating a woman with a belt and then goes on and says, oh, the women, they love it. They love it. Using we all have dark sides of our personality, using dark sides of women's sexuality to abuse them in. Now, I don't know anything about Benny Johnson. I got to be honest with you. I've never heard him before. I've heard that he was involved in that Russian scam. I don't blame anybody for that. They seem to have been scammed, but I don't know anything about him. So I have nothing. I do know one thing. I know he has a wife and 3 children. I don't think he's treating his wife like that. I don't think he's following Andrew Tate's rules for treating women by doing that to his wife. I suspect he's probably at home a perfectly decent human being. So why is he bringing this woman on? And then he brings on Trump's attorney, Alina Habba. Now, Gorko always gave me a hard time for making the joke. I called her, because she's pretty, I called her Alina Habba, and he said that was disrespectful. I don't know. Here she comes on, and this is what she says to Tate.
Nice to meet you. I'm a big fan.
Well, nice to meet you. I'm a fan. You're the one saving Trump. You're doing more important work than me. America,
not just Trump. And I agree with everything you just said. And I think that your anger is the same that President Trump has for our country. And the time is now for us to stop being wimps. I think that's exactly the right sentiment. And I also have to say that I sympathize with you, because I think you go through a lot of the same, show me the person, I'll find the crime that President Trump has gone through.
So you got me. I'm baffled. I have no idea what the hell she's doing that for, why she's talking to that guy. Maybe she hasn't seen the pictures of him belt strapping a woman, or heard him talk about how you strangle them and choke them before them, and then you can turn them into hookers. I don't know. Maybe she hasn't seen that stuff. But the point that I'm trying to make is, inside us is a moral compass. You are born with it. We are born knowing who we are. It's funny. Matt Walsh made that film, What is a Woman? And he walked around and we all made fun of the people who couldn't answer the question. But the film itself can't answer the question. And I talked about this a little bit at the time, that the reason the question is hard to answer is, first, because we have this ideology that has replaced our inability to answer it. And the ideology is nonsense. But you end up saying things about women's anatomy or, chromosomes and all that stuff. But there's an idea that is called primary intelligibles. This is an idea from a Muslim philosopher back in the 11th century, a guy who affected, Thomas Aquinas and other great Christian thinkers. It was called primary intelligibles, which are things we just know. We know what a woman is. A child who's being questioned by the police, they'll bring in a woman police officer. Why? Because the child knows instinctively that women are there to take care of him. That's why. I was walking down the street once in Berkeley, California at night. It was in the dark of night, and I was walking home, and a woman came up behind me and grabbed me by the arm and said, "Would you help me? A man is following me. Would you walk me home?" And I, of course, said, "Absolutely not. I could get killed." No, I didn't. Of course, I took her home. She knew what I was there for. She knows what I'm there for. And she knew her odds of getting a good guy like me who would stand up for her were very high, because guys mostly are, most people are good. The war on reality is a war on your nature. It has been a war on your nature. You have a nature. You have the spirit of the image of God inside you. You know the difference. You know why women are here. You know what men are. You don't have to be able to express it. You don't have to let somebody else express it for you. And we've let that become that knowledge be replaced by these ideologies. And I don't care, if you're Catholic or Protestant or anything, Jewish, whatever else you are, your theology is not going to save you if you lose that image of God inside you. For more great content, like and subscribe. And for even more great content, subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you get your podcasts.